So my Pilani life started, uh, and we were the second semester. We were about 50 of us, and three of us we bonded very well. The other guy was Shamir Sanyal, who unfortunately has passed away now, and the third was Shankar Menon from Coimbatore. And we were very good friends. We would go everywhere together. In fact, so much so that we were called the the Three Musketeers. Uh, so my our thing started. I worked first semester. We could not go with the previous semester, the main semester people in the regular courses because we had to do the courses they had just finished. So I went. We all went through this first semester courses, and then the summer came. Summer was in May through July, May, June, July, 3 months. And we were the second semester admission could not go home. The first semester admission people who had finished 2 semesters, one whole year, were going home for 3 months, and we were not allowed to go home. And imagine my plight. I didn't want to leave home, and here I am. And when everybody else can go home, we were said, no, you have to catch up the last semester courses so that next year, in the next academic year, you would be on par with the other students. So we were forced to stay there. And we were only these 50 people really for the whole summer. So we were 50 of us in that Buddha Bhavan. All the second semester admissions were kept there. And then we had to go eat, and it was not bad, but the summer was so hot that the coffee they made in the morning, the milk in the coffee would turn bad. It was that hot. And I, being from the south, I'm not used to eating these chapatis and dal, and that was the staple food there. So, having left home, my food was, first of all, it was very cold when I landed, and I had to eat chapatis and dal. And I literally used to cry, what kind of thing have I put myself into? But the dream of engineering was there. But in Pilani, they had a system. I think right now, I think it's a stupid system. It was. Now they changed it, I hear. About 500 students would be admitted into 1 year into a general stream, they called it. And it was like, we had a number. My number was 74 triple X and then 951. That was my number. And the triple X would change every year depending on which path we went at the end of the year. So at the end of the first year, we were had to select either engineering and science or it was the arts. So engineering and science, the triple X became XES. X for the unknown, E for engineering, and S for science. So, and how they would determine is, you had to give your preference. What do you want in the first year, engineering, science, or arts? So, look at the irony there. Everybody who's admitted in Pilani were admitted because they were the cream, best of the best from each university. And by design, some of them who didn't do well would end up in arts and had to do economics or management or political science, English. I mean, it was, though it was only about maybe 50 or 100 people who had to go into there, the rest of the people were allowed into the engineering and science. But they had a reason to do it, in the sense they wanted to get the cream into the engineering and science. So some of my friends who had come from, from my town, the 2, 3 people, I think one or two of them were forced into the arts group. And I was lucky I got into engineering and science. All three of us, the three musketeers, we got into engineering and science. And so then after that 1 year passed. At the end of the second year, we were branched into either engineering or science. So if you go into engineering, you do one more year of engineering subjects, and at the end of the third year, you would choose which specialty major you wanted to do: mechanical, electrical, electronics, civil, like that. And I chose mechanical engineering. So I successfully went through that in my course up to mechanical engineering, which is what I had wanted to do. If for some reason I had not gone into engineering and science and went into arts, I think I would have left that university and gone back to my hometown and again tried to enter the film institute. So now what happened was I was already there for a year without going home, year and a half without going home. And I said, okay, this is not bad. There was a newfound freedom for me. My mother used to be very strict with me, very strict. I was the only boy, and I already told you about my father who was not educated and all the things he had gone through life. So she was very afraid that I would become like my father. And so I have to be on the top of the class. If not, I would get beatings. Those days beatings were big. She used to have big canes and belts just to beat me. So I found a newfound freedom here, and I decided I won't go to my home at all. So every semester I did some extra courses, and at the end of the second year they had a program called a dual degree. About 4 or 5 students, the top students in each class, would be offered the opportunity to work on a second degree simultaneously. So a lot of the courses are common. It's only the last 1 or 2 years they had unique courses for that. So I chose to do my MMS, which was Master of Management Studies, as a dual degree because I was given that option. And because I worked through every summer, and also in the regular semester, regular course load was 4 or 5 courses. And I remember in one semester I took as much as 10 courses. We were allowed to do that because there's a very funny system of allocating which teacher you would go under for a course. For example, if you wanted to do calculus, there would be about 10 sections of calculus with 50 students each, and some of the professors were the very best, our seniors would tell us. So we had to go and select the teachers, and we would be allowed in a line, and that line was determined by lottery. So if you get an early number in that line and you wanted the best teacher, the first 50 people who want to do calculus will get the best teacher. I still remember the professor, he was Dr. J.C. Pant. And all our professors were US educated, they had all come back from the US. And so I think 1 year I got him, and the second and third year I had to settle for whatever I got. So that's how we were assigned to which teacher class we could go to. Yeah, so we could not just go to anyone we want. So we went through that. Anyway, my course went through fine, and I was going to come back to Chennai after my graduation and start working. Meanwhile, BITS Pilani was like IITs. Everybody in IIT, and then I found out BITS Pilani also, they seek admission in the American universities, and everybody en masse end up in the US. And I was very patriotic at that time, and I did not want to leave my country that has taken care of me for this much. But in the fourth year, everybody starts writing their TOEFL and GMAT exam. And TOEFL was just an English exam that we would just breeze through because we had studied in English medium. It was nothing. It was nothing. But GRE was for the engineering admissions here in the US, and GMAT, GRE or GMAT, the GMAT was the entrance examination for the MBA program. And everybody used to write and come and say, oh, GMAT is the hardest exam ever. So I was intrigued, I said, how hard can it be that we can't pass? So I took that as a challenge. And everybody around you say, oh, TOEFL, what did you get in TOEFL? What did you get in GRE, GMAT? And I was the loner, not even wanting to think about it. I said, maybe I'm a fool, so let me write the exam and then decide what to do. So I wrote TOEFL, fine, did great. I wrote my GMAT and I breezed through. I was in the 90 plus percentile, and which means I could get into any university that I could want. I applied, of course, I did not apply to any university that needed application fees. Those days application fees was $10 to $20. The highest was maybe $30. And I couldn't afford it. All I could get money from my mother was for my fees, which was 150 rupees, which is $2 today. For the 6-month course, that was my fees, 150 rupees. And $10 is today is like 750 rupees, and the equivalent at that time, whatever it was. And $20 would be 1,500. There's no way we could afford it. We are from a very, very lower middle class family with just my mother's income. And so I applied to only those universities that had no application fees. So of course MIT and Harvard and all the Ivy League was ruled out. So they all were charging $20, $30, $50 also. And to my surprise, because of my GMAT score and TOEFL score, I got admission from about 20 universities with assistantship. Those days, of course, if you don't get assistantship, I could not have come to the US. Assistantship is you go work under a professor, you help him out, and they pay you a small stipend. And I got admission in 20 universities with assistantship. Then, meanwhile, I became very friendly with some of the staff, and one of them particularly is Dr. Subramaniam and his wife Savitri. We call her Sashi Mami, and they were from Buffalo. He had gone there to do his PhD or postdoctoral, and they had come back to India, and he worked in Tulani. He was a math professor, and I had become very friendly with them, and I used to visit them very often, once a week or twice a week. And Sashi Mami used to keep on talking about their life in Buffalo. And by the end, maybe after 6 months or a year, after keeping on listening to it, the life here and this, that, I was convinced Buffalo was the greatest town in the US. I had no idea of what US was, what the cities were, how they are, nothing. But just from her, I came to know that they lived in Buffalo and how milk was available in plastic containers, and this life is this one, that one. And I was convinced that the place was heaven and Buffalo was the greatest town. So again, although it was never my idea. I said, let me go to the US, get my MBA, and and then I'll come back to India, or maybe work there for a year or two. So that's how I decided to finally. I ended up in SUNY Buffalo, and then from SUNY Buffalo, within a year, I got an admission with fellowship to work under one of the biggest names in marketing, Dr. Jagdish Sheth. I hear he's in Atlanta now, and maybe retired. And I got an opportunity to do a fellowship under him. A fellowship was kind of to do research on your own without having to do any work as an assistant in the assistantship. And those days it was like $500 a month. So I went and I shifted from Buffalo after a year, went to University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, and that is where I graduated from. And I will tell you in the next episode about how my daughter was born. I got married, and then daughter was born. Then I had to take up a job because $500 was not enough. In fact, 500, and I used to work as a paper delivery boy. I used to get another $25 a week, so $100. So meanwhile, in Pilani, one of my interest was photography. Really, I became the secretary of the photography club. So we had a processing center. Those days was only black and white. Color was not even heard of. And I used to be the official photographer of Pilani till I left Pilani as the secretary of the photography club. And we did some really, really great things. And maybe that was my streak from my interest in films. Maybe had I gone into films, I might have become a cameraman. They call now director of photography, DOP, or maybe a director. So that was my passion, photography. In fact, I had won a national award for a photography contest. So with that kind of a photography training and this mass around me pushing me to write TOEFL and GMAT and getting the admission, you suddenly think you're going to land up in the greatest country on earth, and I had no clue of what America was all about other than what Sashi Mami had fed me about the life here. I was looking forward to my life in Buffalo first. I'll tell you how I landed up in the middle of a snowstorm and things like that in the next